Welcome back to the podcast. My guest today is Lyle Hebel from Stone Glacier. He's a marketing director and a freelance illustrator. Thanks for being on here, man.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here.
So because school just ended up here and I'm a high school English teacher, my first question is going to be, you're a senior in high school. Do you have a separate sketchbook that you're ignoring your teacher with? Are you doodling in the margins, or are you only sketching when your homework is finished?
No, I drew all the time, man, and I had my own sketchbook that I took with me everywhere. I actually have I have a stack of them somewhere in a box. Now that I draw everything digital, I don't draw on paper much anymore. But yeah, I always drew during class. I was able to listen really well though, so I don't think it really ever, took my teacher off, and I did well in school. But yeah, I was always drawing constantly.
I think there are certain habits or things that you can do that's non-distracting, so your hand is just kind of doing it and part of your brain is somewhat engaged, but you're still able to still listen. So it's the rare case in which multitasking kind of works, but I think by and large, for a lot of people, they use that as an excuse to not get stuff done. But
Yeah,
that's good.
sure, for sure.
When did you start sketching?
Oh man, I've drawn like ever since I can remember, a little kid. So my mom is an artist, my grandma is an artist. I have an uncle who makes saddles, does a lot of leather tooling. So I have a pretty large, diverse background of family history of people doing art. But I think the first time I kind of thought like, maybe I could be good at art, or I was drawing different, was in second grade in art class. We were drawing pictures of our houses, and I drew mine in 2D or 3D perspective, which with like vanishing lines and the whole thing. And the teacher couldn't believe that I knew how to do that. And so I had learned from an artist friend of my mom's how to do that. And so that was kind of the first time where I was like, man, maybe there's something here. But I've been drawing forever, as long as I can remember.
So did you grow up like asking for materials and stuff to get better, or did you just like use pencils, whatever you had? I think some kids throw a lot of money at their hobby when they're younger, but then you end up with a whole bunch of unused tools. So
Yeah.
what kind of helped you become outside of
Yeah.
influence?
Yeah, I mostly just drew. I really like drawing with markers, so I always had a bunch of markers laying around. And then I was just like every birthday, Christmas, like when the usual kid is getting like socks and underwear, people would just normally give me like a new, fresh drawing pad or sketch pad. And my mom always did really good on making sure that I had plenty of like kind of art supplies lying around. But I never really got into like painting much, or like sculpture or any of those things. I mean, they're fine, but I'm a pretty OCD person. So like I could keep things very tight and needy when I just sketched in a book. So
Hmm.
I didn't really end up with too many crazy things, but now like I have kids, and I, encourage them to draw, and we have stuff all over our house. So it's a mess. But
Is there a difference between the word draw and sketch? I know some people get really about anything in fly fishing world. It's an indicator. It's not a bobber. You're like, oh, sorry.
right.
Is
Yeah.
there that level of it's sketching,
Um,
not drawing?
uh, yeah, I don't know. Like I think you in a lot of ways can interchange those two. I mean, most of the time, like I start out with a sketch, and what you end up with is kind of like a final drawing. And so for me, sketching is just like faster, quick iterations of something where, when I sit down to really draw something, the goal is to like, hey, I have a project or what have you, a need for myself or a client that I'm trying to achieve. And so in the end, I end up with a drawing, or oftentimes I refer to them as an illustration.
Hmm. Well, how do you know when you are finished? How do you know when it's and then how has that changed? I'm sure it's the same thing with writing or anything. You get your drafts and you think you're pretty close, but you could always go back and you could always tweak. So how do you know when you're finished?
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. It took a long time to figure that out for me, because I can even now change things, but somebody that does a lot of commercial illustration, there's kind of a time value on things now too. So the longer you spend, in theory, the less money potentially you're making on these projects. So it's kind of about finding that balance of like, you're satisfied with where it's at. You could always spend more time on it, but at the end of the day, those little small details you add sometimes add value, but oftentimes just the only person that's going to notice them is myself. So yeah, you kind of got to like that's to be done.
Do
A
you,
week, month, and then back to it and add more details.
yeah. Do you remember your first when you started to become an illustrator and actually do this for money? Do you remember your first rejection or your first like acceptance?
Um, yeah, it's kind of interesting and not to sound arrogant, but I haven't had like a ton of rejection because I don't normally like, I'm not a guy and I'm so busy with my day-to-day stuff at Stone Glacier and just kind of fishing career has gone as I've always had it's always been kind of like my hobby that has progressed through time. And so like oftentimes people have just come to me and asked for illustrations. So I haven't ever really like put myself out there for a project or something where I've always wanted to do that. I've just been very fortunate in that the work has kind of trickled into myself. But I think the first time I thought that like, maybe there was something here was there was an art auction I used to do when I was a little kid, and I drew this drawing, and it was like it was obscure. It was like a chicken or something, like a little ranch chicken or something. It wasn't anything too crazy, and it sold for like $400. And I
Mm.
was like, man, like maybe this is like something I can look into doing a little bit more often. So that was kind of the first one, but I mean, I've definitely had projects where I was really excited about them, just didn't pan out the way maybe I wanted them to, or just never came to fruition. And so those are always hard because oftentimes really good work just goes unseen and it just kind of lives
Hmm.
either in, like I said, in a sketchbook on a piece of paper or digitally on my iPad.
So when you sit down to sketch something or draw something now, is it I got this, no sweat, just got to knock this out, it's work, or you have to take the breath and say, okay, I gotta focus here.
Yeah, for me, it's really like it's a release because like oftentimes, in your day-to-day stuff, like in particular with Stone Glacier, like there's just a lot of like very deep thought that goes into our marketing in regards to, like what does it look like? What are we doing? Where do our budgets go? And so, there's an added level of stress in that day to day. And for the illustration stuff, it just kind of comes naturally. So for me, it's like I actually get excited to do it.
Mm.
And it's something that I always find myself like, I do most of my work from like 8 to midnight because, my family's wound down, they're going to bed. And sometimes I'll look up and it'll be 2 in the morning and I've been working on this drawing for that long and I got to shut it down so I can
Hmm.
get some rest for the next day. But yeah, it just kind of comes naturally to me. I don't know, just something that kind of flows. And when I get going, I can normally just turn it on and go for it.
Yeah, that confidence is something that it varies at least a little bit, but I've been writing a column for 13 years, and there are some times when you're kind of looking for ideas in how you're living, and then when it comes time to actually write it, you sit down and you just crush it, and there's that confidence, I'm going to get
Mm-hmm.
this done, or it's due tonight, but no sweat, I got this. Do you
Yeah.
have moments where you're kind of unsure, where like, whoa, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
don't, or your confidence wavers?
Yeah, for sure. Like the hardest part is sometimes you have an idea in your head and you just like you cannot get it to, the paper and you'll redraw something to get it right and it's just not what, your intention is. And so for me, I can kind of like and now at this point in my life, I'll just be like, hey, like I don't have it right now. So I'll close it down and go do something else, go shoot some arrows, hang out with my family, whatever that is, and try to like figure out how I get back to that spot where the creativity is going in the direction I want it to. But sometimes like I'll start a project and it's garbage and I'll just scrap it all and have to start over. But that's the most aggravating things. Again, just having that idea and you can't quite articulate it the
Yeah.
way you want it to look on the paper.
When you do scrap something, do you like throw it away, or does it just kind of go into the pile of on hold?
Yeah, it goes into the pile normally, and like I said, right now I draw everything digitally, which is it's been awesome. So it just lives in a file, and sometimes it's funny like you think it's bad, but you'll like flip through it or you'll like accidentally stumble upon it months later, and you're like, yeah, there was actually something there, and maybe rework it a little bit. But normally it just kind of sits there as a reference or a practice, if you will,
Hmm.
of something if you need it. But
Living in Montana, that's huge and rugged and rural. So when you go out on some of these hunts, it's kind of overwhelming. Like, how do you try to encapsulate that experience in one illustration when there's just so much going on, or do certain things pop out to you? Are there certain things that you're motivated by, or are there certain things that you look for?
Yeah, so the hardest part for me, and I think this is the tricky part for a lot of artists, is like figuring out what your style is initially. And my style has definitely like progressed over time, but one of the things that I really try to focus on in my style, and this is to tie back into your question, is I tend to draw like iconic singular kind of figures, if you will. So like a doll sheep standing on a rock, a bear walking down a trail. Like I don't put a lot of background details and things. It's often a guy with a backpack on, packing a bowl out. And for me, like I just try to focus on those like key memories or kind of key moments when you're like, oh, that was a cool stance or that was an interesting pose. And so oftentimes I'll snap a lot from reference photos when I get back. I have some other resources for those as well. But yeah, like for me, it's just kind of finding those iconic, like, oh, that was like, the moment where, that's what I want to draw from in that photo or in that memory. So yeah, definitely a lot of influence out there. For me, like, I like to draw really authentically too. So, like when you draw a backpack that, it has the right backpack straps and, the buckles are in the
Mhm.
right place and, the skull is the way you would actually pack it out. So for me, there's a lot of authenticity that comes from, my experiences outside in the wild and then applying that onto the paper as well.
So I live in Southeast Alaska, and you've been to my home island. So what was one of those
Yeah.
authentic or iconic moments that you were experiencing that you may or may not have drawn?
Yeah, so I went Dall sheep hunting last year up there. Was lucky enough to take a really nice ram, and so series of kind of pack out photos that were pretty cool. And it's one thing to like look at a photo of somebody else and draw from it, but it's really a totally different kind of experience to look at a photo of yourself and draw from those experiences. So those pack outs were pretty cool, and just the vastness of it, like it really kind of hit home in regards to like the visual use of space in my drawings and like my space in that landscape when we were in Alaska, because it really is like so big compared to everything we do. I mean, there's lots of wilderness and areas you get into Montana where you can kind of feel lost, but nothing like Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the your first impression when you were landing in? You went through Anchorage, right?
Hmm.
So what
Yeah.
was kind of the first thought? Was it excitement? Was it overwhelming? Again, Montana is rural, is rugged, is
Hmm.
super mean. But once you get up and out of Alaska, it's a lot more. It can be striking just how isolated you are. So was there a specific thing that you remember seeing and looking at or thinking?
Hmm. Yeah, I remember when we were coming into Anchorage, you go over all those mountains, and I just remember looking down and and like in Montana when you fly over, like coming into any town, like you'll see a house, shiny rooftop. Like you'll see, a lot of kind of traces of humans on the landscape, and you just didn't see that. And so for me, like that was kind of when that like aha moment of like, man, we're gonna be in the middle of nowhere. You're really on your own out there. So hopefully you prepared well and it's going to go in your favor. But that was kind of that aha moment for me. It was like, man, this place it's really giant.
Hmm. I've been to the interior a couple times. I went up there for a caribou hunt in March, and
Mm-hmm.
Southeast Alaska is 1,700 islands, and so it's just a much different program. At least you can drive a lot up there, but it is cold and icy, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just so desolate. Do you have any sort of desire to live off the grid for an extended period of time, say more than just, maybe a 10, 14-day hunt? Do you think, is there any part of you that thinks, man, cabin in the woods, a couple years?
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought that would be an interesting kind of thing. If I wasn't married with three little kids, who have kind of like their own, dynamic lives going on right now, I could see myself, in a few years well, a few years, 10, 15 years when I retire finally, or whatever that is, 20 years, who knows? Yeah, just spending time in the woods, like kind of living off the land, just making art. I think that would be a pretty incredible experience. Right now, I probably don't see myself anywhere near that, just how crazy and dynamic and my life is and how much I like it. I mean, it's really an exciting time, kind of where I'm at in my career with my family. But yeah, there's something romantic about the idea of, building your own cabin or homesteading out there. It's pretty
Mhm.
incredible.
So how has your career and how has your hunting impacted your family life as a husband and then as a father? How important is that, or what are some things that you look forward to as far as influencing your family?
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's, because you're gone from your family a lot, oftentimes, 20, 30 days a year, you're, at least for myself, out in the woods, sometimes longer, doing these adventures and these trips. So, I always feel like, honestly, somewhat a little selfish, like, man, like, is this what I should be doing? Is this, as a husband and a father, like, and for me, I always find that when I come back from these trips, I'm way more connected and centered and focused on my family. Out there, like, man, it's amazing how much you can miss those guys. Like, just a short time into each trip, I'm always kind of like, wonder what's going on back at home. Are the kids doing this? What's going on there? But luckily, my kids are getting a little older, and so for the last 2 years, I've started hunting with my oldest son, Archie, and man, that's been really awesome. And he's really kind of a pretty good little hunter. He's taken 2 mule deer here in Montana so far, both of them pretty decent bucks. And he's just like really starting to get into it. And he's kind of got that, somebody who's in the hunting space day after day after day. Like, you do find yourself like slightly like burnt out, or like, I just, today, like, I don't want to talk about hunting, but he definitely like like just gets you excited about the whole process again. And that's been really cool. Mm-hmm. And then I have 2 other kids. My middle son, Luke, is he's kind of on the fence, I think, if he's going to be a hunter. He really likes shooting archery and shooting the rifles, but he's just a super kind person, and so I'm not sure kind of where he'll fall. And then my last child is a daughter. Her name's Haley, and she's absolutely going to be a predator. She is all about it, man. She wants to go. She loves going, loves shooting, loves eating the animals. Like, she is all in. So I'm excited to get her out there as well.
Were you ever scared about like pushing them too hard, or the conversations that you might have to have regarding, some ideas about what hunting is compared to what it actually is? So have you had some conversations, or have you been kind of worried about how that's going to play out later on?
Yeah. So, the my kids is like the importance of like, you're taking something's life. Like, we're not just going out here to shoot these things because it's, it's fun or what have you. Like, there's more to this. And so for us, like, we always talk about like the bigger picture, like, why we go hunting. Obviously we do have a good time out there, and it does provide meat on the table for our family. But, there's the whole conservation side of it. It's just sustainability side. So we talk about that. But, for me, like, I want these first few years for my kids to be fun. I've been on trips when I was a younger kid that were just brutal, and by the time you were done, you're like, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to do this, I want my kids to have some success. I want them to have some failures, kind of in the beginning. Walk away being like, man, I really dislike hunting because my dad made it too hard, or there was too much pressure on us. So, So yeah, with Archie, the last 2 years, it's been a lot more kind of like truck hunting and longer day hikes than I would probably do on my own. But it's really just about starting to extend his boundaries. But at the end of the day, like I want him to have a good time and walk away with memories that he'll have forever.
Yeah. When we moved up to from Colorado when I was 5, Dad bought a used boat, and it was an inboard, and the thing was a piece of junk. And I was 5, my brother was 8. So our first memories of fishing out in the ocean were just the motor quitting, Dad swearing, the vein in his forehead just popping out of his head, and then us having to use the 9-horse kicker to get back to town. So it was just long, and it was just awful, and that was super impressionable on us. And my brother got through it and ended up really liking ocean fishing, but I just went to the rivers. I loved fishing the rivers, and that was kind of that first impression of that. And I feel kind of bad now looking back as an older guy about ready to get married. I start thinking about those sort of things and the importance of experience and success, but without being overbearing. And I just think about it can be difficult to do that, engage that. Do you think it's getting more difficult to convince kids to get involved with hunting in the outdoors, fishing like that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's difficult to get them excited about it. I think it's harder to find adults that are excited about it, that want to take kids. Maybe their families don't do that stuff, and so for us, like anytime I've ever taken anybody, kid or adult that's never been out hunting, they always come back and have a blast, and often they want to do it again or do more. So for me, like little kids they're pretty easy to get excited. If you go out there, you catch a few fish, you harvest a doe, whatever, like they get pretty jacked up on it. And I think for me, it's not so much about getting them excited. It's just finding opportunities to get them out there and ensuring that there's enough adults to take them. But
yeah, that's kind of tough. There's the kids don't know to be insecure or to be upset about anything until they're taught that from some sort of influence. And a lot of times now that's coming from the internet. You don't want to sound like the old guy that, get off my lawn type, but that's such a big difference. You used to be influenced by the people in your community, your family, teachers, friends, people in the community, but now you're being influenced by people who are online, and that could be bad. Do you think there's some positives that have come with social media? I'm sure, it's changed marketing drastically. What are some of the positives that have come with the proliferation of social media?
Yeah, I think it's easier to find content that you're interested in that maybe you've never experienced before, right? Like we watch a fair amount of YouTube in our house, and we watch a lot of hunting shows, and it's kind of interesting because while there's some negativity, some things that go on in some of these shows that maybe I don't agree with, overall there's a lot of learning moments, and there's just a lot of teaching moments that if you sit down with your kid and watch this content, you can glean something and have a very positive experience when you walk away through it. But there's just, it kind of opens your kids up to a wider world, and some of it's bad, but it's just your job as a parent to try to put some parameters on what you're okay with them watching. My kids watch a lot of magnet fishing. Have you ever heard of this?
No, what is that?
Yeah, I had no idea it existed, but basically these guys will go out with a big throw line with a giant magnet on it, and they go to high density areas, and they'll throw it out, and they'll pull in gold coins or old knives or all these different treasures and trinkets. And so my kids are all about magnet fishing, and they want to go outside and find spots to go magnet fishing. And it's a great way for them to go out and do things outdoors in a style that I didn't even know what magnet were talking about it. And so yeah, it's interesting. I think there's that negativity of social media, but you just kind of have to take some of that with a grain of salt, and be able to kind of filter out the BS pretty quickly. And I think once you do that, then there's a lot of positivities and kind of some of that social stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of trashy stuff out there. Sometimes the trashy stuff is entertaining, and you kind of watch it sarcastically. Always. Keeping that kind of mental check is important. When I talk to my students about social media, I say, this is huge, and it's very detrimental to certain people. If you don't check yourself, it could be very negatively influential. Have you seen The Social Dilemma, that Netflix documentary?
Yeah, I started watching it and I fell asleep, so I haven't got to watch it all. But Yeah, I think, for me, and we deal with social media all the time, and I deal with it on my personal stuff and then Stone Glacier as well. And oftentimes like it can be a little bit, somebody will post something and your blink reaction is, oh man, I'm angry, or I'm upset about that. And oftentimes for me, I always think of it like, it's very telling of that individual as who they are as a person, if that's the kind of stuff that they're going to post online. So it's probably somebody I don't want to associate with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always think to myself, if this person was standing here in the room with me, would they say that to my face? And oftentimes the answer is no. So, I add that factor in too. And so I just think like, hey, like if you're just going to trash talk on the internet and say things that don't have any validity, then I honestly I don't have a lot of time for you. And I just unfollow those people, or I block them. Like there's no reason to be like that. And I'm open for criticism and, great dialogue, as long as there's, actual, feedback that's coming out of it that's actually going to apply, and maybe change how things are done. But just to go on there and criticize or bully, I just don't stand for that.
Yeah, that's rough. So how's the marketing change, the marketing game change in the last, I don't know, how long have you been with Stone Glacier? Where you've done some.
Yeah, so I've been with Stone Glacier now. Before that, I was with a marketing firm here, and then we had a larger clients in the outdoor space. And yeah, it's interesting because like it's kind of like fashion. Like there's kind of like a cycle, like mom jeans on high school girls, and wives are like, those are cool again, right? And like I always feel like there's just like every 10, 15 years they pull stuff back. And so for the longest time, there was this big trend for like influencers, and who's like the biggest person out there and the hottest star, and like how do you track that person down and get them in your product. And we still do some of that influencer marketing stuff, but it's not really on a paid kind of scale like it maybe has been in the past. And so what we're seeing is just a big resurgence of like interactions, right? And so for us, we're all about connecting with our customer, ensuring that we're out there having the same experiences with our customers, so that we can better educate on our products, better talk to the customer when they have questions, concerns. And so for us, like, it's just all about creating those authentic touch points kind of at every state of the game. So like right now, currently at Stone Glacier, there's 15 employees, and everybody hunts or fishes on some level. Some guys obviously will go harder than other guys, but you could literally pick up the phone, call in, Matt or Chris, who are our warehouse guys, could answer the phone and they could talk to you and sell you a backpack. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's all about just, being truly authentic to who we are. And then that kind of trickles down into all your marketing. So, the photos we choose, the language, the copy, everything that we do all kind of falls down from that. Like, hey, like we're just guys that like to go hunt, that are trying to build the best products that we can.
Mm-hmm. Growth is always an important thing. So how do you keep your identity while still trying to grow? As a writer, I think about that. I want to sell books. Mm-hmm. I want to sell as many books as possible. But once, if I did happen to sell a whole bunch of books, then I'm more of an author than just a high school teacher who happens to write on the side. Success with a podcast. It's like that band analogy where you were a small band, no one really knew you, and then you got big, and then you ceased to be what you were. So how do you keep your Stone Glacier identity, but obviously aim for growth?
Yeah, it's something that we discuss a lot, because we know at some point, there's going to be the right person that comes in that's definitely going to be, the perfect candidate for a job. And maybe they're not as experienced as a hunter, but it's going to be the best thing for our business. And so for us, it kind of ties back into what we discussed earlier. It's an opportunity for us to engage this person and teach them, how to be a better hunter, the right way to go about it, get some experience so that they can, start to interact with our customers and be very, very knowledgeable about the product. But it's also just very thoughtful in how and what you do in those decisions. And so oftentimes, the marketing team, it's literally me and Zach. And then we have some, casual help from the other guys in the shop in regards to hey, do you guys like this layout? Do you is this the right messaging? Would you say this or not say that? But really it's me and Zach. And so yes, we would like to hire some more people, but we would rather take the time and find the right individual to ensure that hey, we got the guy, right? And so for us, it's sometimes having to do a little more work, knowing that like, hey, we're making the right play long term for our brand. Um, but yeah, it's just about making those decisions thoughtfully, and knowing that like, hey, as you grow, it does become harder to keep your identity. But if you have kind of the right core guys, then I think it's really easy to do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the future looks like? It's always impossible to guess, but as far as what might be the next thing, or where is all this marketing product stuff, outdoor industry going?
Yeah, it's always a tricky question. I mean, recently we've seen a big just rejuvenation really when you get outdoors, and that's obviously I think coming off of COVID and the fact that a lot of people have been in lockdown. But even during kind of that pandemic, we saw some pretty significant growth of people saying like I can still go hunting, I can still do these things, and so I think hopefully it's kind of opened to their eyes to say like, hey, like this is something that you could do forever, and there's not a lot of the health side of it, and it's pretty good for you to get out and hike around and go have these experiences. So for Stone Glacier, we'll continue to innovate and design new products. We'll grow our apparel line. We have some new tents and shelters and things that we're working on. So there's some products and things that we'll just continue to kind of release here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to that COVID thing, it was being a teacher. It was crazy to deal with the transition between 100% and then 50%. And when we were at 50% capacity, the kids would only have 2 days of school. So they'd be there either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and then we would just have office hours on Friday. And during the blacktail rut, like there were no students showing up. And there were a couple, I'd get the feedback on Monday or Tuesday, and these 3 kids all went out and they all got one. I'm like, oh man, I saw you guys out there that day, and you all 3 got bucks, which is pretty sweet. But
that's cool.
That's such a healthy thing to be able to do, and it's purposeful. Going out with the friends on a hunt, or going out with their uncle or dad or mom or something on a hunt. It just, I think, really reinforced how important it is to have those sort of connections to valuable things and purposeful things, rather than just getting your self-worth from posts and likes and YouTube and things like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In Montana, they have it's like a youth weekend where it's kind of in between the close of archery season and rifle season. There's I think it's 2 or 3 days where only kids get to hunt, and so we've really taken advantage of that. So the last couple of years, we've gone out during that weekend, and that's where Archie has shot his bucks. But it's great. Like you just see, we're hunting pretty remotely, but you may see like a couple other kids out there. But oftentimes there's always this kind of like sense of competition, right? Like, oh, there's some other hunters over there. We got to get over here faster or whatever. But when all the kids are out, man, it's kind of like, hey, we saw some deer over here. Did you get a buck yet? Or hey, we were over here last week, and there was a good group of deer down here on the river. Have you gone down and checked them out? And so it's really about just helping all those kids, find an animal and have some success, and that's really cool. And it's honestly like probably like becoming my favorite 2-3 days of hunting that we get to do. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like looking back. I didn't grow up hunting, but I like looking at some of those kids that you see the pictures of. Hey, Mr. Lone, check out this buck, and they just got ordinary gear on, just their school backpack that they're packing a deer out in, and it's just really cool to have that simple sort of look, and just that it's about the love of the experience. And that's really fun to have that connecting experience or that image in your head.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think, sometimes they look at gear and they consider it like a hurdle, right? Like, and as somebody who, works at a place where we make high-end gear, it's expensive. It's great. Like it does add value and quality to your hunt. But if I had to give anybody any advice who was like new to hunting and worried about gear, it's just go. Like you're going to figure it out, right? You might be a suffer's fest here and there, and you'd learn like, well, there's actually something in that quality gear. I'll start to save up for that. But I would never let gear, outside of like being confident with a rifle or something like that, be the deterrent to not go out and go hunting. So yeah, I think, whenever I see those people with that kind of mentality, I always just like to be like, hey, you can do this, just get out there and go for it, and you're going to figure it out. And yeah, you might carry a bull elk in a suitcase. I had a buddy who shot a bull, and he was new to hunting. It was his first one. And I was actually at a trade show, so I couldn't come help him. And he called 2 of his friends, and they literally packed half of it out in like a duffel bag. And And so then he texted me and I got him into the shop and got him some frames. But it was like, I'm like, who's doing that? And he's like, well, we just didn't have anything, and that's what they had. And so, yeah, you get creative and, it's a memory they'll have forever. And he shot a great bull in his first one. But yeah, don't let gear be the deterrent.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think on the flip side of that too, we have people that buy gear and treat it like an experience. Like they have the gear, but they don't actually hunt as much. Or well, I lived in California for a little bit. On Sundays, I would go and I'd walk around Bass Pro Shops, and it was kind of my day in the woods. But no, it was at a store. I didn't actually do anything. I went to a store and I was around the gear that you would use to go outside, but I wasn't actually outside. So I think we can kind of trick ourselves too into looking the part when actually not having that authentic, I actually go outside and use this.
Yeah, that's a good point. We always talk about like you're always a hunter, right? But you're just not always in the act of hunting. And so for us at Stone Glacier, that's a lot of the reason why we started to make, all of our products, there's no camo in them. They're all solids. Is because, the majority of the year you're not hunting, you still may have that like hunting mentality, and like a lot of that trickles into, it's like, man, but at the same time, like, I don't want to walk around everywhere with camo, and everywhere I go, people are like, what's this guy doing? And, we have nothing wrong with defending and talking about why we like hunting and the importance of it. But at the same time, it's like, just don't always need to be in that mindset. And so oftentimes I think these brands make hunting look so, kind of like sexy and elegant that you want to be a part of that. And you're just kind of willing to walk around so that people are like, oh, that guy's got that product on, so he must be like a good hunter, And some of the best guys that I've ever met in my life growing up were just, really good, guys with horses that would go in the mountains and they would shoot great bulls and they'd pack them out on horses, and they're wearing blue jeans and leather getting after it. So yeah, I always think like gear's important, and in a lot of scenarios, if you're sheep hunting, things like that, like it's great to have that. Elk hunting, nice to have that gear, but don't ever let it be that barrier for your entry.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to start the podcast, to just talk to some of the local people who their names are not known by anybody, and but they just do the things, and they are absolutely hardcore, amazing hunters. And so just talk to a lot of those people and just kind of get their perspective. And my buddy Jesse, Jesse Knock over on Prince of Wales, he was one of the first guys to kind of go full on the Sitka gear, and he got made fun of and he got teased a whole lot. And then he's like, the stuff's good. It just works. It layers well and all that. And so it was funny when you started to see more of that pop up, and then you started seeing the other brands pop up, and it was kind of funny just to see that transition, and people kind of got this idea that this gear it's more than just fashion. And then I think with the Stone Glacier stuff, it's nice to have that stuff because you can use it. Like I teach in the pants, and every couple of months there's like another little nick in it or a possible stain, but they're perfect teaching pants too because they're not not camo. But it's interesting to see how people react to that. Walking off the plane, you got here come the bear hunters because they got the camo on and they got their rifle in their hand, and but that's cool. They're making it happen.
Yeah, again, like, I mean, as somebody who sells gear, I mean, I would absolutely tell you that it enhances the quality of your hunt for sure. Like there's no denying, like, the more comfortable you are, the drier you are, the longer you could stay out there, the better your success is. But I think, in the end game, like if you want to get out there and you can't afford all of the package deal with all the camo and the backpack and everything you need, like there's still ways to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, quality gear is going to just make that experience so much better. And I think, as you start to get more engaged in it, and the longer you go, the more experiences you have, then you really start to identify like, hey, like quality gear does add to the success. But like, I remember growing up, like, I don't shoot deer all the time and, blue jeans. And then I think the kind of my first experience was I bought a pair of like lightweight, like hunting pants that were like super breathable. And I was like, man, these are awesome. Like, this is a game changer for me. And so then I started to really kind of look at all my gear, and that over time, it's just started to progress to say like, hey, like I really like this piece. I like that piece. This works well. And you kind of start to build out your kit. But in the end, comfort and quality gear will absolutely help you out though.
Yeah. It's funny to think about who came up with that idea for that. Dude, let's put some zippers on the side of the pants so that we can vent
Right.
out the heat, or let's
Yeah.
put some buckles so we could like cinch everything to the spine so it doesn't just sag down.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes me feel like a little less hardcore, but that's fine. I would choose comfort over. I'm still doing it with an old JanSport backpack from school.
Mhm. Yeah. It's interesting too because like oftentimes like when we're hunting we always talk about you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable at times, and so like you put 125 130 40 whatever pounds of gear and meat on your back. Like I don't care what backpack you're wearing, like it's not overly comfortable. I think our backpacks do a great job of executing what they need to do, and you can adjust them and make them as comfortable as possible. But at the end of the day, a lot of weight is a lot of weight, and I don't care what you're wearing, it's not a great experience. Your memory is always so short because every time you get out you're like, man, that was terrible, I don't want to do that, and then you find yourself a week later doing the exact same thing with a buddy or something. So but yeah, gear absolutely is at the end, like it does help you, even though it's not always what you want to spend your money on.
Yeah. You mentioned the be comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a lot of
Mhm.
phrases in the outdoor industry that are just kind of cliche. Are there any that stick out that you just hate hearing? Just, oh, I'm tired of hearing that, or it's just the easy thing that people just apply and like, oh, I'm tired of hearing that.
Yeah, I always find on ourselves too, and like, yeah, I'm guilty of this all the time. But there's a few like keywords that when people talk about gear, we always hear like versatility, and you're always like, well, anything's versatile if
Yeah.
you want to make it. So there's a few of those kind of like buzzwords like that where you're always like, man, like we got it, like it's gonna do that for you. The hardest thing for me is oftentimes uh, like I really have kind of a dislike for people who talk about technical materials and products when they don't really have the background or the chops to do that, right?
Hmm.
So somebody talking about the quality of a material or the way it doesn't or does function when they don't really know the science or the technicality behind that. And so for me, I always see those individuals, or I hear about those things and I'm like, man, like they just don't know, right?
Hmm.
That these products are actually doing exactly what they should be doing, but they just don't have any idea. But again, it's easy when you're creating a blog post or a social post or YouTube video to just kind of like throw out your 2 cents when it's probably really not accurate.
Hmm.
And so I always find those kind of like when I'm watching those, I'm always like, yeah, it's not true.
I,
Just a little
I
more research.
yeah, I don't really trust product reviews very often, but you can look
Yeah.
at certain things. Someone's going to give it a 5 star. Oh, just got these in the mail. Can't wait to use them. Like, dude,
Mhm.
you've never used it
Yeah.
before, so how can you review it? People
Yeah.
who take a little bit of time and they go outside and use it and they say it's great, but it
Mhm.
doesn't fit. But fit is such a difficult thing because I might get like I'm
Mhm.
thin. I'm 6'2", and so I might order a large because I need the length, but I don't have the width. And so if I say that it doesn't fit right, it's all messed up, but it's going to fit
Yeah.
perfectly for someone else. And so those things are super, super subjective. And so when I go through some of the comments, I look at, okay, this was user error. This
Yeah.
was a frame. This is an issue of their body type. So it can be
Mhm.
hard, but there are some people who definitely are specific, and so you can get some good stuff out there. But there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, customer reviews are tricky. I mean, we solicit a fair amount for our website, and yeah, we get a lot of 3 to 5 stars. Occasionally, you get the 1 star, and for us, like the 1 star, that's kind of like our favorite because then you get to interact with this person and like really like dig into why they gave it a 1 star or a 2 star. And so oftentimes, it's the opportunity to turn this person around about not maybe your entire brand, but maybe a particular product that you have. And so for us, we always look at those 1 or 2 stars as like, man, that's like, let's see what's going on there. Cause yeah, oftentimes, the reviews that, they do help. And there are guys that do spend, a lot of time creating a very thoughtful review. But there's some guys, yeah, that will just post reviews, like you said, like just got in the box, the quality looks good, I'm excited to wear it. And there's something to be said for those blink reactions, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, those longer, thoughtful reviews, like those are the ones that really really work and drive home. But yeah, like sometimes customer reviews are crazy. I used to, in college, there was a class that I took, an English class, and you had to go write customer reviews for Amazon products. Have you ever seen these?
No,
And
no.
so like, oh, they're great. And so there was this whole trend where like people would go and you would basically write like this really like elaborate product that you bought or whatever and post them as customer reviews, and you would like gauge the interaction of people on there. And so yeah, when I was in school, that was like an assignment. You had to go write a customer review, which was kind of funny.
I don't know when it was. I think it was maybe first semester this year, maybe it was last year. Kid was talking about Sharknado in class, and so I went online
Mm,
and I was reading some of the reviews on IMDb, Internet Movie Database. Yeah, and it was funny
yep.
because there are some really creative people that were just crushing these awesome reviews, and it was so
Yeah.
funny, and we had a great time. I just read them 5 to 10 of them. Um, and some people are just it's a good skill
Nice.
to be that good at writing some sort of review because it's got to engage the reader. You don't have a lot of space.
Hmm.
It was a pretty good
Hmm.
instructional. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's I'm always amazed. Like we just did a bear video and some guy was in his turkey blind and he wrote like a really funny review. And yeah, it was just it's for one, like we're always flattered that somebody takes the time to interact with our brand on that level. Because I mean nobody has to, right? There's other things somebody could do with their time, but the fact that they sat there and had that creative moment to, post a really funny, super long paragraph that made us all laugh. We printed it out and it's on the refrigerator in our break room, and stuff like that. Like that's what I like. And for me, like when I see those interactions, that's when I know that like, hey, our marketing must be working on some level because people are enjoying the content and they're willing to kind of like put a little piece of their own creative well-being out there for somebody else to kind of review. And so it's cool. I dig
Mhm.
that.
So what's next on what are your summer plans? What's the hunt plan look like for the late summer fall?
Yeah, so we actually have a fair amount of events that are coming up here in June and July. The passing of some of the COVID restrictions, it seems like things are opening back up. So we have some stuff. We work with Ryan Lampers a lot.
Hmm.
I'm sure you know Ryan, just solid individual, um, fun dude, like super quiet, but you can get him talking. Like if you work on him a little bit, he'll open up to you. But just a great hunter, and so he does those Western hunting summits. So we'll be over there putting on some backpack demos and educational stuff there, and then providing some entertainment for them in the evenings as well. Challenge stuff, and then kind of a litany of different banquets for Stone Glacier. And then myself, I was lucky enough. I drew a Montana sheep tag, so I will be spending a fair amount of time kind of cruising around the mountains here behind my house looking for a sheep. So pretty excited about that. Not often you get to hunt sheep 2 years in a row, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty jacked about that. And then I'll try to do the other stuff too. I mean, obviously the sheep tag will be my primary focus, but I have an archery elk tag here in Montana. Obviously, I'll take Archie out some. Probably going to go to Texas later this year with the guys from Mountain Project, do some odd hunting with them. And then kind of everybody in our shop has something, like
Hmm.
we're all in and out all fall. So Tay and Colby are going to go to Colorado deer hunting. Colby, I think, is going to Idaho deer and elk hunting. Zach's going to Colorado. Andrew will be probably in Idaho and Colorado. So yeah, we're all over. Yeah,
Hmm.
we just tons and tons of hunting will happen this fall, which is cool.
You can't stop time. If you don't do anything, time just kind of slides away. If you
Yeah.
do a lot of things and have a lot of things to look forward to, it seems to accelerate time. But I definitely choose
Mhm.
that over just sitting around and letting time slide away. But man, it just seems like things go so fast. Individual days seem long, but before you know it, it's
Yep.
king salmon season, and then it's deer season and goat season, and then all of a sudden it's a new year, and man, it just
Yep.
makes things go fast.
It does, and we'll probably do a couple family vacations too. Like so, my wife doesn't hunt, but her like hunting, which is kind of funny because she appreciates hunting, has nothing wrong with it. Will eat the meat or whatever, but um, she's just not into it. It's not her thing. A lot of respect for it, and she loves that the kids are into it. But like I'm kind of the same way with travel. Like I always have a good time when I go, but like just the thought of like, oh, I got to go do this for 5 days. And, and I'm not a person that's easily like just kicks back and does nothing. So that like relaxing kind of vacation stuff that she likes to do, I'm always like, oh, okay, we'll go do it. And I always have a fine time, but like, it's the same thing. You're like, oh, no, vacation for 7 days. And then we're going to go hunting for 10 days. And I still got to work in there at some point. And just, you just start to get stressed out about some of that stuff. And you're like, doesn't really matter because it's all going to be fun. But yeah, so we'll do some family vacations and what have you too.
Yeah, can't wait. Well, what else you got? Any concluding thoughts either about your freelance illustrating, your Stone Glacier, your Lyle the dad husband? What do you got?
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's been a weird year, so we're just ready to like start to get back to some normalcy, community open up, and people start to get outdoors or in smaller to larger groups. Nothing, I haven't seen anything too crazy, but it's been nice to just kind of normal a little bit. I think as a community, as a country, like everybody's ready for that, and so for those interactions, like we get more people in our showroom here at Stone Glacier now. We're able to go out and customers on some of these events and things. So we're just, it's going to be a busy summer and we're, excited about that. Good to get out there and kind of like have some path to be what it used to be a little bit.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. And
for sure.
Take care and good luck hunting this year.
Yeah, man. You too. Good luck with that wedding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya.